Let's take you back to the 1700s. Explorers came across an island in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. At first glance, they found no people. At second glance, they found more than 800 statues facing the sea. Since then, and the centuries to come, people have been wondering why the Easter Island statues were placed the way they were, and who placed them there in the first place, and how time treated them since. Stick around to the end of this video to find out all about Easter Island, where the infamous sea-facing Maui statues stand guard. You might be surprised to know that nobody, apart from the tourists, call it Easter Island. In fact, the name Easter Island became famous due to the day it was first discovered by the Europeans, which happened to be on Easter Sunday in the early 18th century. The actual name of the island, as well as its inhabitants, is Rapa Nui. The volcanic island lies in the South Pacific, over 2,000 miles off the coast of South America, and over 1,000 miles from the other islands of eastern Polynesia. This makes it one of the most remote places in the world. Talk about antisocial, but it's due to the remote nature of the island that their unique culture thrived and led to the creation of one of the biggest marvels of human creation, the Maui. The Maui statues are usually about 10 to 20 tons and stand about 13 feet high on average. Although there is one instance of an incomplete statue that was supposed to be 17 feet tall. Each Maui is a massive figure with elongated, exaggerated features. You can recognize their long noses, wide chins, rectangular faces, and deep eye sockets anywhere, because they are everywhere on the internet. People have scratched their heads over how primitive society, with no complex tools, was able to make almost 900 of these statues, which weigh tens of tons, especially considering that the statues didn't just have heads, but were full bodies buried underground. That's right, don't be fooled by the pictures of the heads buried in the soil of the Ranuraku volcano. All of these heads have bodies, well, except the broken ones. Now, visitors have come up with many theories about how the statues were built, including those about aliens gifting the inhabitants secret technology. You've probably figured out that that isn't exactly correct though. We'll get to how the statues were made in a moment, because the alien conspiracy being false doesn't make the history of the statues any less unique. The creation of the oldest of these statues dates to over 1,000 years ago, and the newest ones were created at the end of the 17th century, which isn't really new by any means either. As time passed, however, the complexity of the statues increased. The Hau Hakanani, for example, meaning stolen friend, was taken off the island and displayed in the British Museum and was built around the 13th century and is called one of the finest examples of the sculptures. From the 887 Maui, the Hau Hakanani is one of the only 14 Mauis to be made out of basalt. All the others were created out of volcanic tuff, which is compressed volcanic ash. Tuff is very easy to carve, and over time their craft improved enough to start making patterns on them, which explains why they were created, but we'll be getting to that fact in a moment. The Maui were built on commission from an individual or tribe and built by a team of expert stoneworkers under the guidance of a master. The payment was done using whatever was available, usually food or tools. The team doing the carving could be made up of as many as 15 people who'd been carving large rectangular blocks using basalt picks called taki. After the shape was carved out, the master and his assistants would then work on the finer details, like the patterns. The last part completed was the eyes, and this was also the most important. Made up of white shells and corals, the eyes of the statues were seen as the key to bringing the figure to life. Today, only one example survives. Once the statues were finished, it was dragged over many miles to its destination, which could be miles away. As many as 14 people were required to accomplish this. It sounds like a lot of effort to make something with no practical use, which begs the question, why were the statues created? Well, the Maui were built due to one of the island's now dead religions, before it died off about the 17th century. Of course, this is the only reason why the creation of these statues stopped around that time, and one of the reasons why they were almost destroyed, but we'll get to that later. The statues were meant to honor one of the chiefs of the island, or another important person who had died. This is why about a quarter of them were moved to stone platforms called ahu after they were built. The ahu were meant to be tombs for the person. This is also the reason why patterns were carved. Each distinct pattern represents the person the statue was built for. According to the ancestral religion, this would grant the chieftains supernatural powers. related to mana, a spiritual source of energy, which would then allow the spirit to watch over the tribe forever and bring good luck to them. This is why the statues are called Maui, meaning so that he can exist. A fun fact, the hats put on the statues are also related to this. They're not really hats though. They're actually meant to represent hair, which was grown out and tied like a ball on top of the head. It was also believed that the hair was where the mana was stored, which is why the chieftains never cut their hair. The reason why the hair was often red is because it was customary on the island for a long time to dye one's hair. The statues all face inward into the island, with their backs turned to the sea, to protect the island and watch over the community. However, right before the Europeans arrived, tragedy struck the island. It turns out the statues weren't much good for the job, because famine came to the island, and the people lost all faith in the statues. The Maui tradition had already begun to decline when the island was discovered, but by the mid-19th century, most of them had fallen. The most common theory is that the statues were toppled over in tribal warfare to humiliate the enemy. But there was also a local legend about women who topped over the statues in anger using her mana when her children left her nothing to eat. However, many of the statues have been restored by archaeologists, and thus they have become one of the biggest tourist attractions in the world today. If you're one of the many who dreams of seeing this historical wonder in person one day, you'll have to take a flight from Santiago, Chile, or Tahiti, as these are the only places that fly to the island. And if you're planning on going there, you best prepare yourself for a long flight. It's all smooth sailing once you get there though. You'll find plenty of hotels and the locals are very friendly. Tourism is their livelihood after all. To get the best view of the statues, trek to the volcano Rana Raraku. Out of the almost 900 statues constructed, almost 400 are over here. And while the statues are the main reason to visit, the island is also home to some excellent surfing and diving beaches. If you're on the island, give them a visit. But there's something very important you have to remember if you go there. You cannot touch the statues. The Maui are protected by law because they are deteriorating at a fast pace, and tourism often makes the process faster. There have been examples of tourists being charged as much as $17,000 for touching a Maui and breaking its earlobe. People sometimes end up skipping a visit during a trip to Chile because of how expensive it is. The entrance fee to the park alone cost $80. However, it'll be well worth the time and effort though, because you'll be seeing a sight found nowhere else in the world. If you visit the area, remember to be respectful of the island, its customs, and the people, and you'll have an amazing experience. The Maui are one of the most fascinating archaeological wonders of the world. The Rapa Nui National Park has even been named a UNESCO World Heritage Site. With its rich history and culture, the island and its statues are still a riddle for scientists and archaeologists, and a must-visit for everyone who wants to see the world.